When we're talking about war history, there is no other era more romanticized than the Three Kingdoms. The war basically lasts for 100 years, starting at the end of the Han Dynasty, spawning short-lived states that rose and fell, before it all collapsed back into one unified empire under a new dynasty. The ironic part, the ultimate winner wasn't even one of the Three Kingdoms. And when people talk about this era, there is one name that always stands out: Cao Cao, the iconic villain of this fascinating age. Hey again, it's your narrator Narigane. Today's video is about Cao Cao. This one was pretty tricky to make. There's a lot of blur between historical facts, the novel version, and everyone's opinion on the era, but I hope you find it entertaining. Don't forget to hit that like button, comment your thoughts, and if you like it, please subscribe to the channel. And let's start glitching. Cao Cao was a warlord, poet, and statesman, one of the most pivotal figures at the twilight of the Eastern Han Dynasty. Born into a modest but politically connected family, he began his career in the imperial court as a sharp, ambitious bureaucrat. He gained a reputation early on for being clever, cunning, and not bound by convention. Sometimes praised as decisive, other times condemned as ruthless. When the Han Dynasty began to fracture and rebellion spread across China, Cao Cao didn't hesitate to take up arms. He wasn't born with vast territory or noble titles. He started with the relatively minor Yan province, surrounded by more powerful rivals like Yuan Shao and the remnants of the Han elite. But Cao Cao had something else: vision. He believed that only through centralized control could the chaos be ended, and he pursued that belief with relentless focus. He was a brilliant tactician and administrator, known for his ability to attract talent, scholars, generals, thinkers, even those who once fought against him. He didn't care where someone came from, only what they could offer. In a time full of factionalism and bloodlines, that made him stand out. But there was another side to him. Cao Cao was also a man of culture. He wrote poetry, raw, melancholic verses that spoke of war, time, ambition, and the transience of life. His words were not the refined works of a court poet. They were the musings of a man who carried both power and burden. He was charismatic, even charming, but with a sharp edge. People followed him not just out of fear, but because they believed he could bring stability. As Chancellor of the Han, he ruled in the name of the Emperor, while holding true power from behind the curtain. He never declared himself Emperor, but he paved the way for his son Cao Pi to do so, founding a state of Cao Wei. That alone made him a controversial figure, both admired as a reformer and condemned as a usurper. But here's the thing, the image of Cao Cao that survives today comes less from history and more from fiction. Specifically, the 14th century novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, or Sango Yanyi. In that novel, Cao Cao becomes the perfect villain, intelligent but scheming, powerful but heartless. Because every great story needs a contrast, and for Liu Bei, the humble, righteous hero, Cao Cao was the perfect foil. But reality is messier than novels.
有了这两把剑，还能不是英雄吗？
We will deep dive into Liu Bei lore in the other video, but for now, let's do a short version as a background. Liu Bei is often portrayed as the complete opposite of Cao Cao, humble, righteous, and unwaveringly loyal to the Han Dynasty. In Romance of the Three Kingdoms, he is the ideal hero, an emperor in exile who inspires loyalty through virtue rather than fear. He weeps with the people, speaks of justice, and attracts legendary warriors with nothing but his moral compass. Where Cao Cao rules through power, Liu Bei leads through empathy. Where Cao Cao seeks control, Liu Bei claims to fight for legitimacy. But that's the narrative version. In historical records, Liu Bei's path was far more complicated. He changed allegiance multiple times, aligning with different warlords depending on the shifting balance of power. He abandoned cities in time of crisis, sometimes to protect the people, other times to preserve his forces. And he claimed territories not through inheritance or peace, but through clever maneuvering and, when necessarily, military action. Cao Cao's image as a cold-blooded tyrant was amplified by how noble and pure Liu Bei was made to look. In storytelling, contrasts make characters shine. The righteous rebel needs a ruthless ruler. The reluctant hero needs a scheming nemesis. But in truth, they were both ambitious warlords trying to survive in a time of a total collapse. One just had better PR.
破城之后，徐州城的男女老幼全部斩尽杀绝，一味家父在天之灵。
主公，这
Discussion about Cao Cao is not complete without mentioning the Shu Province massacre. In the early stage of civil war, Cao Cao wasn't exactly in a dominant position. While others like the Yuan family held sprawling territories in the north, he started with only Yan Province, a modest foothold in a collapsing empire. To survive and expand, he needed more land. Shu Province, rich and versatile, is an obvious target. But in this era, ambition alone wasn't enough. Warlords needed justification, a cause to rally behind, because even in chaos, conquest required a moral veil. That justification comes with personal tragedy. Cao Cao's father, Cao Song, was murdered while traveling through Hua County, territory under governance of Tao Qian, the governor of Shu. The circumstances are murky. Some accounts blame bandits, other hints at negligence or worse, complicity. Cao Cao sees this as his casus belli. What followed was more than a military campaign. It was a scorched earth vengeance. Entire villages were burned, civilians slaughtered, tens of thousands, if not hundreds, killed. It wasn't just a punitive strike, it was a massacre. Was it pure grief over his dead father? A loss of control over his troops? Or a calculated act of terror to send a message to justify that this is not a simply invasion but the act of vengeance? There is even a theory involving Liu Bei, who was serving under Tao Qian at the time. As Liu Bei retreated from the region, he supposedly left the villages without provisions and sent the message to Cao Cao to take care of the people. Cao Cao, now occupying a region full of starving civilians and lacking the supplies to support both of them and his army. He might have seen no viable option but to eliminate the source of potential unrest, a calculated act of cruelty born from logistical desperation. Whatever the cause, the outcome was undeniable: widespread devastation that made the land he sought less viable, and his name more feared and stained in his record.
我是真的舍不得你啊！
这个我知道，但是我自己真正的要做。
Now let's talk a bit about Chen Gong, Cao Cao's one-time ally and eventual execution. Early in his rise, Cao Cao was joined by Chen Gong, a talented strategist who believed in his potential. But that belief didn't last forever. When Cao Cao started making harsher, more ruthless decisions like the Shu Province massacre, Chen Gong walked away. He joined Liu Bei, one of Cao Cao's fiercest enemy, and when Liu Bei was defeated, Chen Gong was also captured. Here where it gets personal. Cao Cao wanted to spare Chen Gong despite his betrayal. He offered him a position, a way back in. But Chen Gong insists Cao Cao to uphold the law and treat him as he was supposed to be, a traitor, even if it meant death. Cao Cao honored Chen Gong's principle and loyalty and made sure his family was safe and taken care of. There's another account that said that this is staged and Chen Gong's family was threatened to say that, but the truth is unknown. That's the kind of contradiction that defines Cao Cao. He could be ruthless, but he wasn't petty. He could eliminate a rival, but still mourn a friend. Maybe the man wasn't heartless. Maybe he just knew that in times of collapse, even virtue had its limits.
My lord! I expected some contrived little ploy. My life is in your hands.
In strategy games like Total War Three Kingdoms or Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Cao Cao is almost always portrayed as the brilliant tactician and political mastermind. He is cunning, shrewd, and ruthless when necessary, but never chaotic. These games lean into his legacy as both a capable battlefield commander and a dangerous manipulator of the field. He's the archetype of the intelligent villain, except he's not always the villain. In many campaigns, he's just the most competent one in the room. But then we shift into the action genre, especially Dynasty Warrior series. Here, Cao Cao is still powerful and respected, but things get a little blurrier. He's often introduced with sweeping statements about ambition, which, let's be honest, isn't that unique when every other major warlord is also chasing power. He becomes less of a strategist and more of a symbol, an ideal of ruthless order, discipline, and central authority. He is rarely evil, just cold. Compared to Liu Bei's warmth and Sun Quan's balance, Cao Cao becomes the pragmatic realist, strict, calculating, but not monstrous. We got Master Tactician in current strategy titles. And then we have the cold embodiment of ambition in action games. Now you got a haughty princess as Cao Cao. Yeah, I know it's weird, but this happened. In Koihime Musou, a visual novel and anime-styled strategy game, the entire cast of Romance of the Three Kingdoms is gender swapped into anime girls with wildly reimagined personalities. Cao Cao, now named So, is a sharp-tongued but flirtatious and charismatic military lord with loyal and often chaotic entourage. The politics? Still there, kind of. The court quest? Sure. But this is less about historical accuracy and more about, well, fan service. From a war room schemer to battlefield icon to anime empress, Cao Cao's legacy might be complex, but it's also strangely flexible. Cao Cao's villainy might be legendary, but legends are written by storytellers, and storytellers love a noble hero like Liu Bei. But history isn't black and white. Sometimes the ruthless one prevents more chaos. Sometimes idealism leads to just as much war. And sometimes it's not about who was right, but who got the better story. Was also a tyrant, a genius, a villain with vision? Maybe all of them, maybe none. History tells us one version, romance tells another. In games, they pick whichever makes the best story. But peel back the drama, and you find a man who understood power, how to gain it, how to hold it, and what it cost to keep it. Maybe he wasn't evil. Maybe he just did not have the luxury of being nice. And that is the glitch. You've been watching Lord Glitch Cao Cao episode. There is a lot going on in the making of this video. A lot of script rewrite, stuff added, deleted, making it delayed heavily. I'm so sorry. I hope the next one will not take this much time. If you enjoyed this video, please click that like button and share me your thought in the comment. If you agree with my take or something you did not agree, share this if possible, and I'll see you again in the next video.